What do I do, Lord? Destroy the child. Corrupt them all. This is their plan, people. These are demons. Just like the Bible says, it's basically an intergalactic invasion into this space through people. I'm telling you, it's what all the ancients said. It's what they warned of. It's what we're dealing with. They're demons. They're freaking interdimensional invaders, okay? I'll just say it. Make fun of me all you want on CNN or wherever, but everyone already innately knows this. These people are not freaking humans, okay?
Nietzsche said that future Europeans will be a mass of talkative, weak-willed, handy workmen who will require someone to command them because they do not think for themselves. They will require a master as much as they require to be fed their daily bread. Therefore, the democratization of Europe will lead to the production of a type of European, a type of person who is ripe for slavery, prepared for slavery. And slavery in the most subtle sense. Not going to be a slave in chains, but it'll be the typical overactive, happy to work and get taxed at 40% and be a usury slave European that you see all around you now. The strong man, on the other hand, the man who is ruthlessly pursuing inequality and success, he will become stronger and richer than he has ever been before, due to the fact that he'll get exclusive schooling. He'll get elite education that will allow him to see exactly the true reality as opposed to the delusions of the masses. And owing to the immense variety of practices and arts and styles and disguises that he'll be able to don in the democratic age. What Nietzsche was trying to say is that the democratization of Europe is accidentally going to prepare Europe for an ascendancy of tyrants. The people in power today learned a very, very important lesson during the French Revolution. You see, in the past, the powerful, the 1%, used to walk around and celebrate their power. They would blossom their power. They would represent themselves very, very nakedly and free. They would don themselves in feathers and gold in order to signal that they are the Sun King and they are above you, you filthy, dirty peasant. And there's nothing you can do about it because they have the army, they have the hierarchy, and they have long, long years of tradition to keep their foot on top of your head. Now, we obviously get quite resentful towards them. We're like, oh, you think you're better than us? Well, we're going to cut your head off with a guillotine because we see you showing off, so we're going to pull you down. You think you're the magic tulip? We're going to pull you back down into the weeds. Now, the powerful of our era saw that and said the only way that you can remain powerful in the modern era is to be disguised, to be tyrants in the shadows and unnoticeable. When Christianity fell in the West, when God died, it created a vacuum, and that vacuum had to get filled. And the thing is that vacuum getting filled by people who are saying that we should worship demons like Aleister Crowley and stuff like this is not necessary. It doesn't necessarily mean they're destined to be the ones who seize and create the new worldview and mythos for the people of the future. It doesn't have to be that way. These are just the people who are assertive enough to assert themselves upon the problem, to step into the vacuum. Father Severin Rose talked about this a little bit as well. He was suggesting that, as the fall of Christianity, specifically Catholicism, Protestantism happens, there's going to be all this weird shit that's going to pop up and present itself as this new religion of the future, the Antichrist religion that pops in. People are going to leap in and do this stuff. But it doesn't have to be exactly as it shows up, because it's very unconscious. It's just sort of unfolding half-thinkingly. People are just following their guts. They're going into the Dionysian age and turning their Dionysian instincts into a religion. But it's possible that there's another direction for things to go. The powers to be, the powers that are, have learned to stay in the shadows. They learn to hide out in the darkness and manipulate money and do all this complicated economics that you don't understand. Even though simply you can call it usury, which is considered just generally wrong by most major religions throughout all of the last 2,000 years. But you just understand that as economics and how banks work, and you just don't really think about that because you're a dumb bitch. Now, they also manipulate democracy. As I said, people like Bernays specifically would say stuff like men in small little dark rooms, men in private high-rises in New York are going to sit down and are going to think about ways that they can mind fuck you with advertising to turn you into a good capitalist, a good consumer. And what's interesting is that they quite often talk about how the plan is to replace you eventually with automation robots, which will basically disable your ability to rebel because you won't be useful anymore, and then they'll have all these robots that dominate you and act as the police force, and then they'll build this sort of nervous system, this super mind, which will create this automation robots, which will be like the armies that they control, and then they'll be these individuated superhumans up on top. If we can build machines to do your job, you don't have any use. You don't have some valuable creative soul. If we can get artificial intelligence to replace you, we'd happily get rid of most of you. Like, what really value do you bring to the world? You know, you just eat McDonald's, you throw out your rubbish, you pollute the world, you fuck up the environment, you keep on churning out like all these stupid kids that are getting miseducated. You're pretty useless. The powers that be want to get rid of you because you're a plague, you're an infection, you're a bacteria, you're an ant that's annoying. It's causing problems. All you do is produce waste. You're a useless eater, as it is said. Ideally, what we could do is get you to eat something like bug meal, which is not, you know, very, very carbon neutral stuff. You're not going to really pollute the planet too much with that. Stick you in a video game metaverse where you got your little thing on, and then you don't even move or anything like that. You just kind of, you know, we'll stick you in some type of pod. We'll get you out of private property, stick you into some type of pod, like a little Matrix larvae inside the movie Matrix. And then you play this the whole time. We'll like plug you into the metaverse and give you a sort of like sex doll or something like this. And you can just keep on like coming into the sex doll, stuffing your face with bug meal, and just playing some type of crypto blockchain thing where you're running the CBDC centralized blockchain by trying to figure out all these puzzles by playing video games, which is you basically, you know, backing up the network like the way Bitcoin has proof of work. You'll do a sort of like, you know, proof of game, proof of puzzle or something like this. And then you'll basically be devolved into a battery. Meanwhile, the powerful, the ascendant, they'll create all these robots which will do all the actual work, and they'll be fighting each other using these robots, and they'll use all advanced technology to extend their lifespans. They'll use usury and they'll use financial trickery in order to extend out their wealth and their invincibility to eons. And then finally they'll be able to reveal themselves. They'll stand up as superhumans, Iron Men, living for 200 years, you know, got all these augmented powers. They've got like lenses under eyes that allow them to see the internet. They'll have the correct education and all this. They'll be eating steaks. They'll be eating the healthiest food, getting stem cells injected into them. And they'll stand up as like knights in shining armor, like 1,000 years before. They'll stand up above the peasants and they'll be superhumans, ubermensch beyond belief. They'll stand up and they'll be the superpowers, people who are beyond good and evil, people who are above you. They will have mastered you, and they will reveal themselves as the new aristocracy, the people who are going to crusade towards their vision of the ubermensch, the people who stood up and took advantage of the vacuum and cuckolded the masses, who killed the kings in the French Revolution. Finally, they've cuckolded the masses and shoved them down into a position of absolute powerlessness. And now they can stand up as the new power, the new people, the people who now have the rights to the earth, the people who are now so much more powerful than you. They've got lasers coming out of their hands that they can dominate you absolutely, and if you're mad about it, there's nothing you can do.
In the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century, what humanity basically learned to produce was all kinds of stuff like textiles and shoes and weapons and vehicles. And this was enough for very few countries that underwent the revolution fast enough to subjugate everybody else. What we're talking about now is like a second industrial revolution, but the product this time will not be textiles or machines or vehicles or even weapons. The product this time will be humans themselves. We're basically learning to produce bodies and minds. Bodies and minds are going to be, I think, the two main products of the next wave of all these changes. And if there is a gap between those that know to produce bodies and minds and those that do not, then this is far greater than anything we saw before in history. And this time, if you're not part of the revolution fast enough, then you probably become extinct. Once you know how to produce bodies and brains and minds, so cheap labor in Africa or South Asia or wherever, it simply counts for nothing. Again, I think that the biggest question maybe in economics and politics of the coming decades will be what to do with all these useless people. I don't think we have an economic model for that. My best guess, which is just a guess, is that food will not be a problem. With that kind of technology, you will be able to produce food to feed everybody. The problem is more boredom and what to do with them, and how will they find some sense of meaning in life when they are basically meaningless, worthless. My best guess at present is a combination of drugs and computer games.
You arrogant fuck you Westerners. Look at what has happened to us. Look, we're like, oh, we gotta break free from the oppression of the church. And 200 years later, we're literally about to be forced to eat bugs and being enslaved by usurious shadow tyrants who don't give a fuck about us, who think we have no souls and want to replace us with machines, want to replace us with demonic entities that they craft. They're like magicians manifesting these new demons that they're going to use to replace us. They're going to use to get rid of us because they don't like us. They're like, you're useless to us, you're a plague upon our planet. And to be perfectly honest, you deserve it. If you're arrogant enough to say, I want freedom, I'm going to go kill the kings, I'm going to go kill the priests, I'm going to go kill all these people who've spent thousands of years building this stuff so I can be free. Well, look, you're going to have someone come in and take over you. If you're not going to be smart, you deserve your slavery. You deserve what happens to you. You deserve these types of problems. And this is your issue. You can't take that fact. The shadow powers are not supermen, though. They're not gods. They're not superpowers that have been planning some type of conspiracy for bazillion years or something like this. They're opportunists. They have seen in the last 100 years, they sort of understand conceptually that when Christianity falls and the old royal aristocracies of Europe fall, there's a power vacuum is going to open up. And it's going to be a new Dionysian era, and there'll be a certain way of doing things. The power of capitalism, the power of playing it low profile. These are going to be advantageous ways of conducting themselves. But they're not super... They're just opportunists. Bernays was not some type of evil genius. He was just an opportunist. He was just someone who saw a way to exploit people. And he used it, and that gave him power, and power gives you this potential to make these types of decisions. And most of their ideas are not that sophisticated. They're very short-term in their thinking. People could be extreme... The masses could be extremely valuable and animated and useful, more useful than robots, if they weren't poisoned by pharmaceuticals. But the fact is that they're going to poison them with pharmaceuticals because that makes them money, that gives them power, that gives them profit and all these type of things. So in the Red Book, what
Was sogar mit dem schweifenden Paar fortgefahren, sollst der Spieler schaffen. Hier, ja, alle von hinten, und die Kinder. Aus den neuen Schafen schaff mir das Volk, euch grüßt die Kaiser, gerade nicht Arsch. Was heile mir müßig, irgendein Liebe, so spürt es sich schwer, eine Kaiserstumme. Was sich überall, heil und heil mich schwenkt, was heute gibt mich genau. Zögert ihr noch, Zauberpulkan. Vergebenheit für euch drei. Zertrümmert, zerknickt, der traurigen, traurigster Knecht. Nun halt ich, was mich erhebt, der mächtigen, mächtigsten Herrn.
Ist er gelöst?
Bind ihn los.
Schlüpfe denn ein, deine Schlinge hält dich, frei fahre dahin.
Bin ich nun frei? Wirklich frei? So grüß euch denn eine Freiheit ist wie durch Fluch mir geriet, Verflucht sei dieser Ring. Gab sein Gold mir Macht ohne Maß, und sein Zauberpunkt, den der entdeckt, kein froher soll seiner sich freuen, kein glücklichen Lachen sein lichter Glanz. Wer ihn besitzt, den sehre die Sorge, und wer ihn nicht hat, den nage der Feind. Jede Gier nach seinem Gut, doch keiner genieße mit Nutzen sein, und hüt ihn sein Herr, doch in Mühe hat sie ihm zu. Dem Tode verfallen, feste dem Feigen die Furcht. Solange er lebt, sterbe lechzen dahin, es bringt es Herr, als es bringt es nicht. Bis in meiner Hand den Geraubten wieder ich halte. So segnet in höchster Not der Nibelung seinen Ring. Behalt ihn nun, hüte ihn wohl, meinen Fluch fliehe
möchtest du seinem Liebesgruß.
Verlieb die Geifer der Luft.
weiß, was ich tu.
Des Weines Kinder beklaget des Goldes Rauch. Verwünschte Winter! Wieder ihren Geneck! Ihr ein Wasser, was weint ihr auf? Hört das Lothar euch wünscht, glänzt nicht der Meer. In der Götter neuen Glanze sollt euch selig erwarten.
Proyecto Segunda República. No somos la oposición. Somos la resistencia. Una idea cuyo tiempo ha llegado.